Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Octane has given his perspective on the current OpTic's Texas roster, revealing in his opinion who the best players on the team are and potentially as well who the worst player on the team at presently is after a big comeback after their loss against the New York Subliners over the last couple of matches that they have played. Is Octane right in his opinion, and does this mean actually that comparing it to last year's OpTic team, they're in a significantly better spot this season? Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, thought this is very interesting, and Doug St. Martin will be rather happy about this from Doug Leby here. So he puts together an impact rating. Now, it's always difficult to say. Some players, we always talk about it, have very high KDs, and yet they lose, or their team doesn't do so well. So we want to have some sort of idea between if a player does well from a KD perspective, do they actually contribute to the game victory? So we've seen it, we've talked about it with Awakening and these other players. They might drop big numbers but lose. Or, might drop really decent numbers but still win the map very marginally, for example. So what Doug Leby's put together here, former analyst for the Los Angeles Guerrillas, is some analysis on how much those kills contributed to the game. Now, this is always a very difficult one to actually figure out, because, for example, in this analysis here, we've got Toronto beating the Los Angeles Guerrillas 250 to 153. Scrappy goes 15 in 20, but because they won, he still has a positive impact rating, whereas Estriel goes 18 in 14 and has a negative impact rating under a 1, despite having, he lost the map, therefore he has a negative impact rating type thing. That's kind of how it works. So, and I think this might be a better indicator than KD. It still is quite heavily tied to KD and the direction of the map win, but I get where he's going with this. Maybe there's some tweaks that need to be made, but I like the idea. So it effectively considers how many points did the team score compared to the amount of player kills, how many points were lost, rounds lost if you do it for search and destroy, compared to the amount of deaths. You then calculate the impact rating as a result. So Envoy, he has the biggest difference between anyone with a KD and an impact rating. So his KD right now is 0.88, mainly because he got slammed hard against the Boston Breach. But overall, he has a 1.07 impact rating because against the Guerrillas and against the Ravens, he had very high ratings on the impact side for those relevant KDs, because he had good KDs, but they won the maps pretty emphatically. For example, against Guerrillas, that map we just saw, he went 29 in 27, but with a 1.5-ish impact rating based on the amount that they won the game by. Now, it's, it doesn't, what you'd really like to see if the stats could be this advanced is player gets a certain kill, and that kill contributed to 20 seconds of hill time, and then you could calculate that. It's really difficult to get stats on that kind of level, so this is maybe the better approach. Now, okay, he had a 0.2 impact rating against Boston because he went 10 in 29 and they got slammed, so his impact rating wasn't good there, but overall, his impact rating is still higher than his KD, because the belief is that he was a big impact in the series that they won, so he had a stronger impact rating. You see this elsewhere as well, like this I thought was kind of interesting, that, Simp's only rating, impact rating below a 1 came in the control game against Boston, so it's still possible to have, a really high rating, even if you lose. But do you think this looks right? I mean, Simp went 33 in 26, and sure, they lost the map, so he has a 0.7 impact rating, whereas Priestahh goes 16 in 28, and he has a 1.13 impact rating just because they won. Was Simp more impactful than Priestahh that map? I would say probably yes, to be honest, even though they lost. So it's always tough to say. You can get carried, it's possible to get carried hard to the win, but yet still have a positive impact rating. Even if you were throwing rounds hard, you can still, you know what I mean? So I don't think this stat is perfect, but I think that it's quite interesting just to have a look at, and it will be relevant to our discussion in a second as well. So this is what Doug St. Martin said a few days ago on, kills are glorified for fans who think better stats mean more wins. So Doug would be loving, these type of stats, because he could get fried, but yet still have a good impact rating, and maybe there's some value to that. So speaking of this whole impact rating stuff, who have been the most impactful players in OpTic's Texas so far? There's one, to me, key name that comes to mind, which is Kenny, because you can see not just in the KD and the plays, but also the leadership. You can't see on the stat board those plays where Kenny hits the rotation to P2 on Skid Row multiple times in a row over many maps and single-handedly wins OpTic the game by getting the time that potentially secures. That's just 1 kill on the scoreboard, but yet that is impact, which even impact rating right now from Doug Levy can't really measure as it stands. But, you know, that's how impactful Kenny has been, and Pred has been great. I mean, the last couple of series Pred plays, he has like a 1.3. Now, look, there was some stat padding against Ravens, and I can't deny that. Not like they were stat padding deliberately, but Ravens were just so bad that they just slammed them, and it probably makes OpTic look maybe slightly better than they actually are. I still think they're really good, though, and I think, you know, that FaZe OpTic series in a couple of weeks is going to be very exciting indeed. But Octane has given his thoughts on this because we know how high he was on the Kenny, you know, acquisition for understandable reasons, right? He won the World Championship with him, you know, good friends in and out of the game, all this type of stuff on those Los Angeles Thieves days. So he's been pretty convinced that Kenny was going to be a good idea. And there was also questions about Pred, whether Pred was a good idea. I don't think many people had too many doubts there, but it was interesting last season because you look at that OpTic team on paper, Dashy, Shotzzy, Ghosty, and Huke. When that team was formed, it was kind of like a last resort team, right? Because they needed somebody to replace iLLeY. They eventually got Ghosty from Challengers, which OpTic never do, let's be honest. He proved to be really a valuable asset for the team. And then Huke was not their primary option either. They wanted Pred, of course, from Surge, and then Ricky and the guys on Gorillas let Huke go for free, so then OpTic got him. But when that team was formed, the OpTic fan consensus was that, well, you know, it's not really great. Scump's retired, we're in a tough spot. iLLeY's, you know, he's out of the team as he's still got the injury. And I don't think that team was expected to do great. I mean, the fact that they went back-to-back 5-0 splits online, back-to-back second places on LAN, whatever it was, like, that was probably over-exceeding some expectations for that team. This season, they've theoretically upgraded both of those roles, and all of a sudden they're looking really good. And I think this is the point that Octane's getting across, is that he's not saying Shotzzy's bad, or like Dashy's bad or anything like this, but as far as he's concerned right now, Kenny and Pred are the two best players on the team.
Kenny is OpTic's best player. Pred, Shotzzy, and Dash are all these players, but Kenny brings something OpTic haven't had since Karma, which is fundamental in IQ to always play ahead. I've watched 3 Skitter at hardpoints where he single-handedly won them the game. I want to give him his flowers because outside of Ultra and HyDra is my favorite player at the moment. OpTic look okay. I told you guys. I don't agree with, like, okay, I think Ken has been playing out of this world. I think there's an argument for him to be their best player right now. I think AG is the other option. I think Ant is, quote unquote, their worst player, but he's like their best S&D player by far. I think AG obviously is very good at S&D, but I think Shotzi's like S&D over the last couple of series has been like out of the world. His respawn numbers aren't great, but at the same time, I don't think they necessarily need to be. I think like Shotzzy has gone from like needing to perform to win to if he performs they win, if that makes sense, which is amazing. Like if your superstars have a pop off and it's a guaranteed map win, that's a much better situation than requiring a pop off for a map win. So I think that like while Ant's respawn numbers aren't great, his SD has been unbelievable. I think the rest of them are picking it up in respawn. So I mean, they look really good, bro. They look really, really good. I would say they can or Pred though for OpTic's best player. Incoming MVP season. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Hardpoint. Oh, his last 2 series. Damn. Wait, he's been frying like that the last 2 series. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's what they picked him up for. Hopefully, he keeps it up. That'd be fire. He's not good at search though. Yeah, no, he's not good at. He does have a little bit of a go button though. There are moments that since I've watched every kill of the league thus far, he has his moments in S&D where he be going sometimes for no reason. Well, maybe not for no reason, but if he had like a little bit of a break, then yeah. But I mean, if this is the trade-off, if a 1.3 is the trade-off of that, I'll take it. I'll take a scam every now and then. You know what I mean?
So you can look at overall team stats, overall team KD, you get some idea of what's going on here. OpTic actually technically right now have the highest overall team KD with a 1.14. But as I say, probably FaZe have played better teams. I mean, it's kind of tough to say with FaZe because they played Boston, Thieves, and, Surge, right? Those are the 3 teams that FaZe have played so far. And I think they have 3 easier games to come maybe in the new year. So, on paper, Boston, like Thieves and Surge, that's a pretty decent set of games. But the reality is, Thieves haven't been that good, and Boston weren't really good at all until they played the most recent series against Toronto. So maybe that's not as impressive a run of 3 games as it might have initially appeared for FaZe, maybe before the season began, but Surge were, you know, pretty legit, and OpTic also played Surge, but they also played Ravens, so they got some, yeah, and Rocker as well. So Ravens and Rocker, and then they played Subliners in the first series, of course, but still technically those are the numbers. But these are the overall numbers for the players so far. Similar to what we had on the Breaking Point site last year, 9-2 map record, 3-1 match record. 9-2 map record isn't even right, by the way, so just ignore that. I think they're probably 11-5 or something like that if you consider that New York Subliner series, but still, the numbers I'm pretty sure are accurate because they look about right. So Dashy has a 1.21 after dropping a 0.9 in his first series. Shotzzy's in the negative slightly, but and then you've got Kenny and Pred. So this, I think, is the point that is really interesting to me about this OpTic team, is that last season, Dashy and Shotzzy were OpTic's 2 best players, I would say, in most of the time, especially towards the end of the season. Now, you can argue that Dashy and Shotzzy are not, I wouldn't say the weakest players because they're so good, and Shotzzy is like an incredibly talented player, but the idea that you can argue, and Octane argues, that right now, Shotzzy is the weakest player on the team is just a very good sign. I don't think that's a shot at Shotzzy, because I think he's still been really good, especially in the Search and Destroys. But the rest of the team is just better now. Like, Pred over Huke is a big upgrade. Kenny over Ghosty is, you know, let's say raw ability, shooting straight and everything. I do think Kenny's better than Ghosty anyway, but I also think that, like, the outside of the game stuff, Ghosty was great at, like, leading in the game and stuff like this. I think Ghosty deserves a lot of credit, and for good reason, for what OpTic achieved last season. But Kenny is just a complete another level in terms of experience and comms and ability. Let's not forget, Kenny's been playing since Advanced Warfare. That was his first event on Team Justice with Envoy way back in the day, before the age limit thing, comes back in World War II MVP. You know, follows that up with Black Ops 4, incredible player at the end of the season on Thieves. Maybe a couple of lackluster years in there, but of course ends up winning champs in Vanguard after the role changes, all this type of stuff, has learned so much. And yeah, also I think Kenny in scrims, we know that Ghosty can create some friction. Like, that was the big debate at the end of last season with Dashy there, and Dashy and Ghosty not getting on and all this stuff. And now we're hearing rumors that at Thieves it might be a similar thing where Ghosty maybe isn't, you know, the vibes in practice aren't what they might potentially be. So Kenny is definitely a step forward, and also, like, some of the plays Kenny makes, there's no doubt that he's had incredible impact on this team. Do I expect that to last forever, right? Like, will Kenny and Pred be OpTic's best players all season long? I would expect it to be at some point Pred and Dashy, but of course, that's just, and sure, it actually is on the pure KD so far. Pred and Dashy have in the 1.2s, Kenny's at a 1.1, Shotzi's basically even, but so far Kenny's been probably the most impactful player on the team in all the aspects we've mentioned, but I think Pred might take that over at some point, and Dashy's just getting the hill time, you know, like that's the thing that Octane was also pointing out. The Dashy's basically just sitting there, soaking up the time that Pred isn't going to get, but just by comparison, this was Major 5 last year when these were the numbers we saw. Now, look, they'd done well online here again, and then they got to LAN and got slammed by Florida in the first round, then they got beat by Thieves, didn't they, to round out the tournament? But these were the numbers in Major 5, like kind of at the end of last season, when it was Dashy and Shotzzy doing most of the work. Dashy was here, Shotzzy, 1.4 in Search. We're seeing a similar trend again this year with Shotzzy. And then Ghosty and Huke didn't have the greatest time during that stage, especially on LAN. So it's not like Dashy and Shotzzy have got worse, like they were the 2 best players in OpTic towards the end of last season, and now they're arguably the 2 worst players. They aren't really worst players, but you know what I mean? Which is a good sign, right? Because it means that OpTic have basically just straight up upgraded, which I think is what Octane's getting across. So yeah, if this team doesn't succeed this season, OpTic, like, I don't know what to say anymore. Like, it's just so absurd how good this team should be, and there's a reason why many people have said, I think it's the best team they've put together in the CDL era, and therefore you can certainly argue it might be the best team they've had since the Dynasty, which is quite the statement, and it might not be true, but Black Ops for OpTic was pretty damn good as well, but there's definitely an argument there. Just to mention quickly on Dashy, because, he obviously gets a lot of credit, but so far he's taken a bit of a backseat. He does, however, have, I think, the highest non-traded kill percentage in the game, so yeah, it's just significantly over Ely as well in second place, who's the only player with a non-traded kill percentage over 80. So basically, if you get a kill and you don't die within 5 seconds, that's a non-traded kill. So you've got a kill and haven't been traded back. So his hardpoint non-traded kill percentage is 86%, which is so absurd, and you're expecting more, like, higher numbers for ARs, but it's very valuable to get a kill and not die almost all of the time. Like, out of 130 kills he's got so far, 112 haven't been traded. So, yeah, pretty scary side, I suppose, for the opposition, but very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Have a great Christmas tomorrow as well if you're celebrating it. I will do a video tomorrow. It'll probably be a bit of a shorter one. I won't make it tomorrow. I'll make it later today, and then it'll go up tomorrow sometime. So I'm not going to work on Christmas. There won't be videos on the other channels, but if you guys didn't know I had other channels, then, you know, find them maybe in your own time if you're interested. But that is going to do it for Christmas Eve. Thanks for watching as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.